almost going to be able to read. And we're going to encounter all this again and again and again. So keep your sights on that. Keep your mind fixed on that. So then we've got 19, 20, 21. Even if we have to struggle with the aorist, we will just struggle on. Aorist is actually, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to have an obvious indicator. It's going to be a big glaring neon sign that this is a aorist, just like the big glaring neon sign of the causative is Aya. And then we have these exceptions. There's nothing we can do about it. So, and then we start reading the Gita. And I think at that point, we'd be reading, the words of Sri Krishna and philosophy. So it won't just be dry grammar. And oh my God, another exception. Oh my God, how do I know that's whether it's a passive or a causative? It won't be that. We'll be getting wisdom. But we'll be doing it through the medium of Sanskrit. You get two for the price of one. Except it's Bhagavan, so you get an infinity for the price of nothing. So hang in there. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just, you're following the path of Sanskrit students since, Western Sanskrit students since the 19th century. The only difference is in the 19th century, anybody studying Sanskrit would have been masters of the classics. You wouldn't have been studying Sanskrit in the 19th century, or even the first half of the 20th century, unless you were Latinist and you knew Latin and Greek. That was education back then. You would not be touching Sanskrit unless you had done Latin for 15 years. You could read, if you could read, whatever it was in the Latin, and Greek. That would have been humanistic education. Only such people would have studied Sanskrit. So they already had all the grammar and the terms, and they could, and they had some sense because it's Indo-European, especially with Greek. The declensions are very similar. That's where we get these words: periphrastic, future. These are coming from the classics. But we're not. Most of us don't have that kind of a background. So you've done it. It's remarkable what you're doing. It's hanging in there, even if it's by the skin of your teeth. Because if you were doing it in India, you'd have to be a Brahmin, and you'd be starting at 5 years old. You would be learning the grammar through memorizing the sutras. You wouldn't even know what the sutras meant. You'd be memorizing it. Narayanam Namaskar. You'd be memorizing the sutra, and then you memorize the whole of Panini. And then after you've memorized it, then after 2-3 years you're memorizing. Then they would explain what the sutras meant. But they would be internalized at that point. The rules would be internalized by the young children without explaining what the rules meant. Then they would explain, and then they would apply. We're not coming from that kind of a background. I mean, so you think, so don't feel despondent if you're not getting all of this. We're doing something that shouldn't be done in a sense. Either you would follow the Indian system, you've been doing it from the age of 5, or you'd be following, the kind of European system where you'd be classicists already. You'd be Greek, Latin scholars. Nobody would be doing Sanskrit, except the last, 20, 30 years. Even today, students that do Sanskrit, unless they're yogi people, who else would be doing Sanskrit except classicists? Nobody else, unless they're yogis. So you don't have the equipment that you're supposed to have. You're not coming with the baggage in a positive sense. You're not coming sort of with the package that you should normally be carrying with you before you even thought about Sanskrit. So you're to be commended. Okay? Everybody okay with that?